In this video, we will learn the basics of rounding whole numbers, specifically how to round to the nearest 10, to the nearest 100, or to the nearest 1,000. Now, what does rounding actually mean? Well, rounding allows us to determine which number another number is closest to. And in this video, we will round to the nearest 10, 100, or 1,000. And the best way to look at this is using the number line. We can easily see which number another number is closest to by looking at the number line. And so let's do that now. Look at this number line. It goes from 0 to 100, and on it we have the number 43. If we wanted to round 43 to the nearest 10, we have to determine which 10 43 is closest to. And if we have a look, we can see when we count in tens, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and so on, 43 is between 40 and 50. And so we have to figure out, is 43 closest to 40 or is it closest to 50? So we can extend the number line a little bit further to show all of the different numbers between 40 and 50. 41, 42, 43, and so on, straight to 50. And we will notice, here's 40, here's 50, 43 lies right here. And so we have to figure out which 10 is 43 closest to. Well, let's have a look, going from 43 back to 40. It takes us 1, 2, 3 jumps to get to 40, going in that direction. Let's look at how long it takes us to get to 50. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Takes us longer time to get to 50, and so therefore 43 is closer to 40. And so we say 43 rounded to the nearest 10 is 40. Let's again look at the number line with the number 86. If we wanted to round 86 to the nearest 10, we have to determine which 10 86 is closest to. We can see 86 is between 80 and 90. Those are the 10s 86 is between. And if we extend the number line between 80 and 90, we can see all of the numbers in between. 80 on the left, 90 on the right, and 86 somewhere in between. We have to figure out which 10 86 is closest to. Again, we will count from 86 back down to 80. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It takes us 6 jumps to get to 80. And we'll count up to 90. 1, 2, 3, 4. It only takes us 4 steps to get to 90, and so therefore 86 is closest to 90, and therefore 86 rounded to the nearest 10 is 90. Let's look again at the number line and see where 525 fits in. Round 525 to the nearest 10. Again, we can see on the number line that the numbers go in tens. 500, 510, 520, and so on. 525 is between 520 and 530. But which 10 is it closest to? Again, let's have a look and see if we extend out the number line. 520 is on the left, 530 is on the right, 525 is somewhere in the middle. And we're going to count again, back down to 520. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It takes us 5 steps. And let's count up to 530. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 steps. So we have 5 steps to get down to 520 and 5 steps to go up to 530. Which one do we choose? Anytime this happens, we're going to round up. And so 525 rounded to the nearest 10 is 530. So here are the rules of rounding. What have we just learned? Well, we saw that when the digits ended in 1, 2, 3, or 4, we round down. So for example, 42 ends in 2, that rounds down to 40. 81 ends in 1, that rounds down to 80. 74 ends in 4, that rounds down to 70. 93 ends in 3, that rounds down to 90. But the digits that end in 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we're going to round up. So for example, 67 ends in 7, that rounds up to 70. 45 ends in 5, that rounds up to 50. 16 ends in 6, that rounds up to 20, and 38 ends in 8, that rounds up to 40. So let's have a look at a few and see whether we need to round up or round down. 31, that ends in 1. So we're going to round down, that rounds down to 30. What about 49? 49 ends in 9, so we're going to round up to 50. 85, that ends in 5, so we're going to round up to 90. 27 ends in 7. Again, round up to 30. And 64 ends in 4. We're going to round that down to 60. All of those were rounding to the nearest 10. What about 72? That ends in 2, so we round down to 70. Here are some more rules of rounding. How do we round properly? Well, first of all, we have to identify the place that we are rounding to. And in this example, if we rounded to the nearest 10, the number 725, and we put that in the place value chart, we see 7 is in the hundreds, 2 is in the tens, 5 is in the ones. If we wanted to round to the nearest 10, we can see that the digit 2 is in the tens column. The second thing we need to do is to look at the digit to the right to determine whether to round down or to round up. In this case, the digit to the right is 5. We know from the previous slide that if digits end in 1, 2, 3, or 4, we will round down. But if they end in 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we will round up. And in this case, since that is a 5, we will round the 2 in the tens column up to a 3, making it 730. Again, let's look at another example. We identify the place we are rounding to. We are rounding to the nearest 10, 374. If we see the place value, we see 3 is in the hundreds, 7 is in the tens, 4 is in the ones. And if we're rounding to the nearest 10, we see that there's a 7 in the tens column. Step 2 says look to the right again to see whether to round up or round down. In this case, that's a 4. And we know that if it ends in 4, we round down. If it ends in 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we round up. In this case, it's a 4, and so we round down to 370. And now it's quiz time. Let's round to the nearest 10. The next 3 questions will be rounding to the nearest 10. You have 5 seconds to answer. Round to the nearest 10, 275. Time's up. The answer is 280. When rounding to the nearest 10, we look in the tens column, which is 7. We look next door to the right. If it's 5 or greater, we round up to 280. Question 2, round to the nearest 10. 826. Time's up. The answer is 830. We see that there is a 2 in the tens column. To the right is a 6, which is greater than 5, and so that rounds up to 830. And question 3, round to the nearest 10. 94. Time's up. The answer is 90. In the tens column is the digit 9. To the right is the number 4. It is not greater than 5, and so we round down to 90. And now let's round to the nearest 100, the next 3 questions. Round to the nearest 100, 639. Time's up. The answer is 600. In the hundreds column is the number 6, and so we go to the right to see whether to round up or round down. It is not 5 or greater, and so we round down to 600. Number 2, round to the nearest 100. 409. Time's up. The answer is 400. A 4 is in the hundreds column, and to the right is a 0, which means we will round down to 400. And number 3, round to the nearest 100. 951. Time's up. Answer is 1000. How did we get that? Well, there is a 9 in the hundreds column, and when we look to the right, we see that that is 5. And so when the digits to the right are 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we round up. And since 951 is between 900 and 1000, we round up to 1000. And now let's round to the nearest 1000. 4,876. Time's up. The answer is 5,000. 4 is in the thousands column, and to the right is an 8, which is 5 or greater, and so we round to the nearest 1000 up, which is 5,000. Number 2, round to the nearest 1000. 6,158. Time's up. The answer is 6,000. 6 is in the thousands column. To the right is a 1, which is not greater than 5, so we round down to 6,000. And number 3, Round to the nearest thousand. It's 3,598. Time's up. The answer is 4,000. 3 is in the thousands column. To the right is a 5, which means we round up to the next thousand, which is 4,000. And now let's do a combination of rounding. Round to the nearest 10, 8,146. Time's up. The answer is 8,150. If we look in the tens column, we're rounding to the nearest 10, we see a 4, and to the right is a 6, and so therefore the tens goes up to 50, 8,150. Now let's round that same number to the nearest 100. Time's up. The answer is 8,100. If we're rounding to the nearest 100, we look in the hundreds column, there's a 1. And to the right is a 4, which means we round down to 8,100. And now rounding that same number to the nearest 1,000. Time's up. The answer is 8,000. There is an 8 in the thousands column, and to the right is a 1, which is not greater than 5, and so we round down to 8,000. And now you've solved the mystery of rounding whole numbers to 10, 100, and 1,000. Well done.